Wow. This is Maverick Kites. Maverick is from Spearfish / Phoenix.
Yep.
Phoenix / Spearfish.
Yep.
You'll have to ask him how he does that. I don't know how he does it, but that's where he's from. He's got one leg in each of those towns, and he's doing it. Where did motorcycling start for you? How'd that even come about?
So I was about 15 years old, grew up on a farm.
Perfect.
And, you know, everyone else's story is they started on Trail 50s or Trail 70s, right? Well, I never had one because there was no money for that.
Yeah.
That was silly. So I love driving tractors. I love being outside. I love being in the open air. My father had owned several motorcycles as a young man, but never had them as an adult, which I thought was foolish. And so as soon as I was old enough and had enough money to spend $500 on a motorcycle, I bought one.
Right on.
And I remember bringing it home for the first time, and my dad said, well, I thought we were going to wait on this. And I said, what's the we thing? I bought it by myself. So that's where it started for me. J.C. Whitney catalog.
Nice.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
That was the custom.
Okay, you kids out there, go ahead and Google that.
Yeah.
J.C. Whitney.
J.C. Whitney catalog. Every piece of custom part that I could find.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't a welder, I wasn't a fabricator, I wasn't that guy.
Yeah.
And, you know, especially at that age. And so, you know, you start ordering custom parts because you don't want to look the same.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the same. You want to look, you know, you want to be set apart and you want to stand out. So that's where it started for me. Nothing against my father or anything like that, but I was rebellious, and he wanted everything stock. My dad was anal as could be, and it had to look exactly like it did from the factory, and I thought that was the stupidest thing in the world because it looks like everything else. So very early on, I was changing things.
Yeah, you were a custom guy from the get-go.
Yep, and I never liked something stock. Something that had custom wheels or, you know, cars, motorcycle, didn't matter. Custom paint jobs, whatever. That's what I would appeal to immediately.
So as life ebbed and flowed and you were able to buy a bigger motorcycle, buy a different motorcycle, take me back to some of those most memorable bikes. Like what was some of the benchmarks
My
for you?
first real Harley was a 1994 Dyna Y-Glide.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it had a Hot Rod 80 motor in it that was built by the Hell's Angels shop in Minneapolis, which I actually worked for a few years later on in life. That bike was wicked fast. It was well known in town as wicked fast. That was when the twin cams were first coming out. And I've never met an Evo I could beat. Well, I'm like, let's go.
Yeah, that bike Pat Matter and team is right behind me.
That bike had a rev limiter of 7,200 RPM. It had Keith Black pistons, Jim's rods, 595 powerhouse cam, and it was a wicked motorcycle.
Nice.
But not only that, it had a custom flare to it, different wheels. We did it, you know, we did what we could back then. I showed that bike at the Donnie Smith show in 2000.
2000.
I have pictures of my son, who's now 24.
Right on.
He was younger than Cargo. Running around in a blanket in front of the bike. So that's where it started for me, really. And when I really started engaging in custom, I kind of fast forwarded a little bit because I ended up moving to Minneapolis. Yeah. And that's where I was living at the time.
And so tell me about the hamsters. How did you become a hamster?
So I knew about the hamsters for years.
You started merging in?
Well, not really, because I went a different direction for a while. And so I knew of the hamsters for years. I worked for some motorcycle shops on the side, worked for Easy Rider. I worked for Lucky's Garage in Minneapolis.
Oh, wow.
That's where I met Chris Thill, who was a hamster for, 30 years, I think. And always ran into Happy, Donnie, and guys down at the Joint, But I joined an MC club instead.
Okay.
And obviously that was the wrong direction because I didn't fit in because my bikes are too clean and too fancy. Yeah. And those guys like driving junk for whatever reason. And so it just took me a while to come around to realizing where I needed to be. So, I raised my kids and then really started engaging with the hamsters. I've always had hamster friends, and as I kept learning my craft and kept building bikes for myself, because money's always an issue. So you got to do it yourself. And that's where I was like, you know what, I think this is something that really interests me. So I hung around for probably 5-6 years before really anybody picked me up to sponsor.
What year did you get into hamsters?
2021.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I've seen you around. I've seen you riding with the guys. I've seen you at shows. I've seen you at all the things. And this trajectory has just gone like this, right?
So cool.
And I got to tell you, to walk into the parking lot at the Hampshire Hotel the other day and see this bike, I was blown away.
That's cool.
I mean, this is the pinnacle of your trajectory. This is it.
So.
This is a great bike. I've told you this the other day. I saw it at Born Free. We were all standing around there. There's people gathering around, and everyone loves this bike. Some people
brings people in.
Maybe some people love this side. Some people love this side.
The other side, right?
Okay, so explain to me how do we get the split personality thing to start with?
I know we're going to touch on this in a little bit, but I had a kidney transplant this winter. And there's a song from Stick Figure that I would listen to a lot called Paradise.
Okay.
And I would, in my mind, go to the places that I consider paradise. And one of them is here on the coast in California. I love riding in the desert. I love being a desert dog, a nomad. And I do that with my sons a lot. We get on and we roam. My wife loves the ocean. She loves the coast. I love the desert. We both love both. And so that was the theme of the paint job anyway, was paradise.
Okay, so you mentioned kidney transplant. Okay, how's that even happen? When somebody calls you or tells you, by the way, this is it. You're done.
So, we went through the pandemic, and I was I don't know if you call it suffering, but dealing with high blood pressure and, really extreme high blood pressure. And of course, I wasn't taking care of myself and, taking the meds, that they gave me and whatnot. But for whatever reason, I had to go in for a physical so I could renew my meds, and I had a different doctor, and he ran my kidney function, and he comes into the room and says, "You have stage 3 kidney disease."
Oh my.
And I'm like, well, what does that even mean? Is it 12 stages?
Yeah.
No, you have one more stage and you're a renal failure. And I'm like, I feel fine. And he goes, well, that's the problem with kidney disease. You don't feel anything until it's too late. So we started going through the process. A year ago, you and I had a conversation about this bike, knowing that I was going to need a kidney transplant. So for some reason, I felt like I needed to get ready to create something that defined me, that was, I was going to push myself as far as I could go. And you and I had some great conversations and inspiration. And then my son ended up being a match. My oldest son, Thane, saved my life. We had a surgery in February 7th, and it's just been a miracle.
It's a lot to take in, right?
I'm trying to keep it short.
You got a legacy bike, right? And yet your son steps up to say, I'll get tested, or maybe all your sons got tested.
They both did, Yeah, they both did. And my wife, but my wife is disqualified because she had cancer, so she couldn't do it.
So to have your wife having cancer, your two sons are stepping up going, we got this, we can save the day here. One of them's a match.
He never even thought twice.
I would say that's a gutsy move.
There was no hesitation. I mean, he's like, Dad, we got to do this. And I feel so blessed to have sons that love me that much and want me around that much. I was a strict dad, so they didn't always like me as kids. And so now that they're both adults and we are the best of friends, and it wasn't even a thought in his mind of, we got to do this.
So this is truly a legacy project. This thing comes out like this, and suddenly it's like, I feel like, the sun's shining right through you, right? Because this is only going to get better. And so as you started feeling healthier, I mean, were you building this bike at the same time? So this
bike got tore down in January, was all the way to the frame, sent all the parts to paint, powder coat, and chrome, went and had surgery, and stuff started coming in. So it was one of them things I had to have something to look forward to.
You're laying there recovering. And you're like, hey, go ahead and unwrap my chrome swing arm.
Exactly.
Let's see if there's any flaws.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened. So your kids are even more involved because now they're your hands and feet going, okay, check the powder coat. Go pick this up from this guy. We need more of these bolts. Exactly. Everybody, there was anticipation from everybody what it was going to be because I had it in here. But I don't do sketches. I don't do drawings. I just am like, praying that the good Lord gives me, the talent enough to make something mesh,
Well, you're talking a little bit about the good Lord, right? And so it's Sunday morning, and I would imagine that your faith has to be a big player in getting you through.
Well, I grew up in a Christian home, and I'm a born-again Christian. I'm a Christ follower, and I've raised my sons to be that. And without adversity, your faith doesn't grow. And it says that in James. It says embrace your challenges because it builds your character. And so
Well, this is called embracing your challenges, embracing your character.
Absolutely.
You look great. Your sons are amazing humans.
Yes, they are.
And I've seen you going on tons of great rides with them, like long cross-country stuff.
Absolutely, every year.
Jamming up in the mountains and everything.
Yep.
So when I guess that's what I want everybody here to understand is how much love is in this bike,
so much
is in
love
your
in this
family,
bike.
is in your process. And
I'm so blessed in that way.
Tell me your favorite parts.
The paint job obviously is a highlight, but this isn't just painted by a painter, right? This is a very good friend of mine. We've traveled many miles together throughout the country when in years past, and he's an amazing artist. He's just one of those people that's humble, that's not out there in people's face and telling people how great he is, right? And so I said, Ian, let's go win some paint shows. And he's like, all right, because
so what's his name? What's his
Ian
shop?
Strachan. He owns CR Designs in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
I would put him up against anybody.
Well, it looks to me like you're playing T-ball with Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, here's this humble guy.
Yep.
I just set the ball up there. Ian steps up and he just like goes, okay, this is my friend. I'm gonna hit a home run for him.
He did it. He knocked it out of the park.
The shadowing, the airbrush, the graphics, the lines on the variegated gold leaf, everything about it's on point.
He is. The way his mind works, I used to watch him because he used to sell ATVs and stuff in Spearfish, and he would, as he's talking to a customer, he would doodle on a napkin, and I'm like, give me that, I'm hanging it on the wall.
It's art, right?
It's unbelievable how, and he's a sculptor.
How do you pick the base color?
Well, honestly, you know, as most artists, they don't want to be messed with, right? So I said, here's the deal, here's what I'd like ocean, coast, you know, West Coast theme on one side and desert on the other. I said, I love orange, you know, and that's where it came from. He did it. Matter of fact, there's no paint coat. The base coat has candy pink in it, some gold. To hear him say there's a little of this, a little of that. He goes, there's no touch-up paint. Yeah. So, you know.
It is what it is,
It is what it is. It came out as it is.
Gold powder coat finish on the motor.
Yep. Did some of that, didn't have any idea if it was going to work or not. I just knew that here's the deal. If I had enough money, this would have been show polish motor. Just, you know, you got to pick your battles. You have to. And so the paint to me was most important. It wasn't free. He didn't by any means overcharge me. Yeah. But at the same time, I should have paid him more. Yeah. And it's one of them things where that to me, I wanted that to stand out, so that's where I wanted to make sure I had it. The turbo's another thing. I love Nick Trask. He's a friend of ours. So much fun to be around. I love his products, and this bike needed that.
In a world of black, right? Yeah. You came in with chrome.
Yeah, I love chrome.
Bathed from one end to the other.
Yep, never went to black. Never did. Matter of fact, even my bagger that I built a few years ago for my wife and I, it has some black accents, but I had to keep some chrome.
So bike started out base as a Lowrider ST?
This is a 2020 Lowrider. I bought it for $14,000 with 500 miles on it.
Put the fairing on it.
Yep, did Harley fairing.
Step off once and let me see that seat and tell me about those bags.
I knew I wanted these bags because I don't like when people put the full-size bagger bags on because they don't look right. Yep. And so I wanted a set of Dyna switchback bags.
Yeah, hard to find.
It's a God thing, man. Bill Blackmore calls me out of the blue and says, hey, I hear you're looking for a set of bags. And I'm like, yeah, I am. He goes, well, I got a set. Do you want them? I go, yeah, I do. Yeah. And so
that's awesome.
He sent them to me. Again, a good friend. Yeah. Didn't overcharge me. Yeah. You know, if somebody knew what I paid for these, you know, they'd be pissed because no one can find these things. So that's where they came from. A good friend who we lost, and you know, and he's a good friend of yours also very much.
Who stitched this thing?
This was a stock seat because it was comfortable, right? I had a Saddleman on there, and I was like, to be honest with you, the factory seat
felt like you.
Yeah, it's the best. So Guy Teneman out of Guy's Upholstery in Mesa, Arizona did it. And as soon as I saw, so here's what I saw. I saw tape all over the tank, but I saw that shape. Yeah. And I was like, that needs to go on the seat. Yeah. And then this shape back here, same thing.
Well, Guy does it as good as anybody.
Yeah,
I mean,
he does.
He's kind of the best kept hidden secret that we all have in Arizona.
And he's such a nice guy.
He is, and he cares about the bike. He sets it out there. He wants to know the stitching's right, everything's right about it.
Yep.
Well, thanks for sharing your bike with us. Thanks for sharing the moments with us.
Yeah.
I look forward to personally following your family's trajectory as to what's happened next.
Well,
you've installed and watered this seed in your sons now.
Yeah.
It's not that they're riding slouch bikes.
No, and they,
you're the exact opposite of your dad. You're like, no, go ahead, cut it up some more. Cut it up some more.
That's too stock.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, my youngest son is the one who's ridden the most stockish bike in the family for the longest. I'm like, dude, we got to do something with this thing. So anyway, but yes, Thane has embraced this whole culture of custom bikes. And we just recently opened a father-son shop in Mesa, Arizona.
I was just going to ask you about that.
We called it Mav Bilt Customs. It's his brainchild, it's his passion, and it's both of our passions, but I don't want to be a full-time mechanic. I want to still enjoy the creation of it and not have to do it as a job. So I still work a full-time job, and then we work together at the shop, and it's been so much fun.
So do you have Instagram for that?
Yes, we do. Mav
social?
Mav_Bilt, BILT_custom.
Okay.
And that's on Instagram. You'll find us on Facebook. We're learning from you on the social media side of things.
I think you're doing great, and I think it's fun. And I just want people to understand this is where it starts, right?
Yeah.
It starts with that family legacy that you've just created.
Yep.
Not only with the kidney exchange, building a legacy bike and just knocking it out of the park.
Yep.
And so the trick is now to continue to write hit songs.
Yep.
And that's what we want to see from Mav Bilt Customs.
Yep.
So, hey, thanks for joining us on another episode of True on 2. Stay tuned and follow Mav Bilt Customs for more smiles, more fun, and more sexy motorcycles.